Today, we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Theo, and up until recently, I was just a guy who thought he had everything figured out when it came to love. I believed in loyalty, in finding that one person who makes life feel complete. And for the longest time, I thought that person was Mabel. I met Mabel a little over 3 years ago, and from the very first conversation, it felt like I had known her my entire life. There was no awkward phase, no guessing games, we just clicked. It was one of those rare connections where everything falls into place without effort. We could talk for hours and never run out of things to say. She laughed at my stupid jokes, I admired her passion for life, and before I even realized what was happening, I had fallen hard. The early days of our relationship were something out of a movie. Spontaneous road trips, late-night conversations that stretched until sunrise, endless inside jokes that only we understood. Every moment felt electric. She wasn't just my girlfriend. She was my best friend, my confidant, my partner in everything. I could be myself around her, no masks, no pretending. She saw every side of me, the good and the flawed, and still, she chose me. Mabel had this way of making everything feel exciting and new. Whether it was trying out a new restaurant, planning weekend adventures, or just staying in and watching movies, life never felt boring with her. We talked about everything, our dreams, our fears, our future. From the very start, it was clear we wanted the same things in life. We both wanted a strong marriage, a home filled with love, and a future where we built something lasting together. After dating Mabel for a while, I knew without a shred of doubt that she was the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. She was someone I couldn't imagine my life without. So, when the thought of proposing crossed my mind, it wasn't a question of if, just when and how I was going to do it. I wanted it to be perfect, something that reflected everything we had shared over the years. So, I spent weeks planning. I chose a place that meant something to both of us. A cozy little spot by the lake where we had our first deep conversation about the future. The day finally came, and with my heart pounding, I got down on one knee and asked her to be my wife. The moment she realized what was happening, her hands flew to her mouth, and her eyes filled with tears. And when she finally whispered, "Yes," and threw her arms around me, I felt a kind of happiness I had never known before. From that moment, it felt like we were stepping into something even bigger. We both agreed that there was no point in waiting. When you know. So, we dove straight into wedding planning. Planning the wedding was one of the most exciting times of my life. Our families were thrilled, friends were beyond excited, and Mabel and I were completely in sync about how we wanted our big day to be. We spent hours going over color schemes, music playlists, and venue choices, making sure every detail reflected us. I remember sitting with Mabel, flipping through wedding catalogs, laughing as we picked out ridiculous cake designs before finally settling on something more elegant. We carefully selected the guest list, making sure every person there was someone who had been part of our journey. The venue was booked, the outfits were tailored, and the anticipation built up with every passing day. For me, the excitement wasn't just about the wedding day itself. It was about what came after. The thought of waking up next to Mabel every morning, calling her my wife, building a home together, it made everything feel so real. I couldn't wait to start this new chapter with her. If someone had told me that everything would change the night before the wedding, I would have laughed in their face. Because at that moment, I believed nothing could ruin what we had. But life has a cruel way of proving you wrong. The night before my wedding was supposed to be one of the happiest nights of my life. The rehearsal dinner was everything Mabel and I had hoped for, a warm, intimate gathering of family and close friends, filled with laughter, good food, and heartfelt toasts. Tomorrow, everything will change. I would finally marry the woman I loved. As I listened to my best man give a light-hearted speech about our years of friendship and how lucky I was to have found Mabel, I couldn't help but agree. I was lucky. I was about to marry someone I was deeply in love with, someone who in my mind was just as committed to me as I was to her. This was it. The beginning of forever. As the night carried on, the crowd started to thin out. Family members who had traveled from out of state came over to say their goodbyes, reminding me how much they were looking forward to the wedding. I stood near the entrance, shaking hands and exchanging hugs, grateful that so many people had come to celebrate this moment with us. The energy in the room was light and joyful, just the way it should be. But then something changed. I glanced around the venue, and for the first time that evening, I noticed I hadn't seen my best friend in a while. Ryan had been by my side all night, cracking jokes and keeping things lively. I assumed he was somewhere in the room, probably chatting with one of the guests, but as I scanned the faces around me, he was nowhere to be seen. Maybe he had left early, without saying goodbye. It wasn't like him, but I brushed it off and went back to my conversation. Then a few minutes later it hit me. Where was Mabel? I frowned, glancing toward the last place I had seen her, but she wasn't there. Maybe she had stepped away to say goodbye to a relative, or with her friends outside. As the venue started to empty, I wanted to see Mabel before the night ended, just the two of us, sharing a quiet moment before the chaos of the wedding day began. Excusing myself from the conversation, I started making my way through the venue, checking the smaller gathering areas and hallways, even peeking into a few rooms. Nothing. I asked a few people if they had seen her, and one of them casually mentioned, "Yeah, I saw her heading toward the backyard a little while ago." The backyard. That made sense. Maybe she had stepped out for a moment to clear her head and taken fresh air. So I followed the path leading to the backyard, the cool night breeze brushing against my face. The venue lights were dimmer back there, the noise of the guests fading as I walked further away from the main hall. I wasn't expecting anything unusual. I wasn't prepared for my entire world to collapse in a matter of seconds. As I got closer, I noticed movement in the shadows near a tucked-away corner of the yard, a hidden spot. I slowed down, squinting into the dim light. Two figures, close together up. My stomach dropped. At first, my brain couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. But then, under the soft glow of the garden lights, I saw them clearly. Mabel, pressed against the wall, wrapped up in James' arms, their lips locked in a kiss so deep. I froze, watching the woman I was supposed to marry, the woman I had planned to spend forever with, passionately kissing the one person I trusted the most. Before I could stop myself, before I could even process the destruction unfolding before me, her name was ripped out of my throat. Mabel. She jerked away from James like she had been burned, her eyes flying open, mouth parting as if she wanted to explain. But no words came out. Nothing intelligent. James, meanwhile, just lowered his head, covering his face with his hands, shame radiating off him. He wouldn't even look at me. I stood there, feeling like the ground beneath me had disappeared. I wanted to believe this was some kind of nightmare, that I would wake up any second in my bed, waiting for my wedding day. But no, this was real. And it wasn't just any guy she had betrayed me with. It was my best friend. My brother in all but blood. I don't remember what I said, if I even said anything at all. The rage, the pain, the gut-wrenching betrayal. It all hit me at once, and I couldn't stay there for another second. My body moved before my mind could catch up. Mabel called after me. I could hear her voice, frantic, desperate. "Theo, wait. Please, just let me explain." But what was there to explain? What words could fix this? I heard James mutter something, maybe an apology, maybe an excuse. I didn't care. I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I pushed past the guests who were still mingling, my vision blurring as my emotions threatened to consume me. Someone, maybe my mom, maybe one of my cousins, asked if I was okay. I didn't respond. I just kept walking. By the time I got to my car, my hands were shaking so badly that I struggled to get the keys in the ignition. As soon as the engine roared to life, I slammed my foot on the gas and sped away, tires screeching against the pavement. I had no idea where I was going. The world outside my windshield was a blur, streetlights flashing past like ghosts. Then my phone started buzzing. Over and over. Calls. Messages. Mabel. James. My parents. Friends. The notifications poured in like an avalanche. I didn't even bother looking. I grabbed the phone and switched it off, tossing it onto the passenger seat. I didn't want to hear excuses. I didn't want to hear apologies. I just wanted silence. When I finally reached my house, I parked haphazardly, barely registering how recklessly I had driven. I stumbled out of the car and went inside, locking the door behind me with shaking hands. The second I was inside, I collapsed onto the couch, my body numb, and my mind a complete wreck. Soon after came the knocking. First it was soft, concerned voices from outside, people who had followed me home. Then, the knocks grew louder. I heard my mom calling my name. Someone else, maybe my cousin, was asking me to open up. I ignored them. I couldn't face anyone right now. I wasn't ready to answer questions. I wasn't ready to explain what had happened. Hell, I still didn't even believe it myself. When I finally found the strength to speak, my voice came out hoarse, empty, and final. Go home. And after a long pause, one by one they did. When I opened my eyes the next morning, for a brief second, I forgot everything. I felt numb, like my emotions had drained out overnight, leaving behind nothing but an empty shell of who I was just yesterday. I reached for my phone out of habit, but the moment I saw the screen, I regretted it. Missed calls. Dozens of messages. Voicemails. Most of them were from Mabel. Theo? Please let me explain. I'm sorry. Please talk to me. Others were from mutual friends, family members, and people who had no idea what had happened, but had obviously sensed something was wrong. I didn't bother opening any of them. What was the point? No text, no voicemail, no carefully crafted excuse could undo what had happened. Some betrayals don't come with explanations. I sat up, staring at the blank wall in front of me. And at that moment, I knew what I had to do. There wasn't going to be a wedding. There was nothing left to salvage. Whatever future Mabel and I had planned was gone. And I wasn't going to let myself be humiliated by standing at the altar, pretending everything was fine. No. It was time to end this officially. With steady hands, I opened the wedding group chat, the one where Mabel and I had been coordinating with vendors, family, and friends for months. Without hesitation, I typed, "There's no wedding. Plans are canceled. Thank you all for your support, but this is over." And I hit send. Next, I called my parents. The moment my mother picked up, I could hear the concern in her voice. "Theo? What's wrong? Is everything okay?" I swallowed hard, keeping my voice calm even though I felt like I was falling apart. "There's no wedding, Mom. It's over." The silence on the other end was deafening. Then came the flood of questions. What happened? Why? Are you sure? I spared them the details, only telling them, Mabel betrayed me. I can't marry her. My dad was silent, and my mom gasped, but neither of them argued. They knew me well enough to understand. If I had made this decision, there was no going back. I took a deep breath and told them the next part. I'm leaving town. I need some space, so please don't worry about me. My mother tried to protest, but I cut her off gently. I just need time, Mom. That's all. She sighed, heartbroken but understanding. My dad finally spoke, his voice firm. Do what you need to do, son. Just don't disappear completely. I promised I'd check in when I was ready. Then I ended the call. The pain was still there, but now it was mixed with something else, clarity. I wasn't going to let this betrayal define me. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for apologies that wouldn't matter. I was done. I packed my bags in silence. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing. I just needed to get away. The honeymoon trip had already been paid for. The reservations set. The irony of it all wasn't lost on me. This was supposed to be the start of a new life, a celebration of love, a memory that would last forever. Instead, it had become my escape route, a place where I could be alone to process the wreckage of what was supposed to be the happiest moment of my life. The drive to the airport felt surreal, like I was watching myself from outside my body. My phone was still off, and I had no plans of turning it back on anytime soon. I knew people were talking. I knew guests who had traveled from far and wide were looking for answers. I had no idea how the news spread, but I assumed my parents must have told them. The wedding was canceled. The bride betrayed the groom. The best man was the other man. That was all they needed to know. When I arrived at the resort, the front desk staff greeted me with a warm smile, congratulating me on my honeymoon. I forced a nod, too numb to correct them. As I walked into the suite, my eyes fell on the neatly arranged rose petals on the bed, the champagne waiting on ice, the little touches meant to make this place feel special. My stomach twisted. I grabbed the petals and brushed them off the bed with a single sweep of my hand. The silence in the room was deafening. I sat on the balcony, staring at the endless ocean, watching the waves crash against the shore. I had always found the ocean calming, but tonight it felt merciless, like it was swallowing everything in sight. I took a deep breath. For the first time since the betrayal, I let the full weight of it settle in. I don't know if I can ever believe in love again. I had given everything, my trust, my loyalty, my future, to Mabel, and she had thrown it away like it meant nothing. I don't know if I can ever trust another human being. My best friend, the person who had stood beside me through life's highs and lows, had stabbed me in the back in the most unforgivable way. I had always believed that if there was one thing in this world I could count on, it was Mabel and my best friend. I trusted them more than anyone, and in one single night, they proved me wrong. I didn't cry. I had already shed all the tears I could. Now there was just emptiness, a hollow feeling that I wasn't sure would ever go away. And that's our story for today. Let us know what you think of this story. You can share your experience to encourage someone or share this story with someone. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Until next time,